This is the location of the former Danzig Matzkau camp, SS penal camp. So if you're in the SS and you misbehaved yourself, you are sent here. Now, as you can see, there's not a lot left of it. Very little indeed. No signs here to tell you where you are. It's completely off the map. It was once on Google Maps, but not at this location. It was shown somewhere else. I can see there's work going on down here. Something to do with drainage. And we can see there a wall has been exposed. You'll have to see it in a different film because I don't want to film people at work. That wall looks very similar to the wall at Mauthausen. I think it's part of the camp. So how much longer it'll be there for though, I really don't know. So, SS penal camp, there weren't many of them. Well, in fact, this was the largest. The others were very small indeed, or there were subcamps of this. But let's go back in time a little bit. In May 1939, the Senate of the Free City of Danzig bought this terrain here, supposedly for recreational purposes. I don't believe it was to be used for recreational purposes. I think it was to be put for some military purpose from the very beginning. Not just I think that. Polish intelligence, it would appear, also believed that from documents. They believed that some deep concrete foundations had been put here, but I don't think that was the case. The Himmler came here secretly in July 1939, and whilst here he suggested that Gdańsk or Danzig, the Free City, had to beef up its SS contingents. And so what he did was he start something called the SS Heimwehr Danzig, and from this alleged recreational facility that was to be built here, this became the barracks, or one of 4 places which were the barracks of the SS Heimwehr Danzig. It was about 1,500 men in total. Now this camp was designed to have capacity for 2,000, but that was later. Now the war starts. SS Heimwehr Danzig immediately in action, attacking the Polish post office in the city centre on the 1st of September 1939. There's newsreel of it. In fact, I've used that newsreel in many of my videos. For me, it is the iconic setting of the beginning of the Second World War. And they're also in action against the Polish transit base at Westerplatte, which there was a siege of Westerplatte from the 1st to the 8th of September 1939. Now, one of the things being here is that did they even know that they were going to be attacking Poland? And I have my doubts, but that's probably a subject for a different time. Now, the Heimwehr Danzig was sent off to Dachau near Munich, the place where the concentration camp is, on the 28th of September 1939, and on the 17th of October it was incorporated into the 3rd SS Panzer Division Totenkopf under Theodor Eicke. Meanwhile, we know from an article in the Danzig Vorposten that a different SS unit was, in fact, 2 different SS units were stationed here, it would seem, which were recruited from people in the area of the Free City of Danzig. Hey, we'll have a look in here. I made a mistake. I didn't put anything on my legs to protect me from insects. I forgot. So, continue the walk. So this, so it was a camp here. It was pretty new. Poles were brought here to actually work in it. Now, for the Poles who were brought here to work on this, they had extremely primitive conditions of being held here. That I put to you as part of the camp. And diseases quickly spread, particularly lice-borne diseases. And now, in time, these conditions did get a bit better. But you can imagine that the conditions, they're building a camp, so they're with nothing there. They're sleeping on the floor, probably in wet clothes, or sleeping on straw. Maybe if they're really lucky, they might have an empty sack to sleep on, something like that. But it is most disagreeable. Anyway, conditions did get better in time for the Poles. There was even a priest from the seminary at Pelplin who managed to escape. We know that in December 1939. That's the only person who managed to escape. Now, and the people who were here was not only used for building the camp here, but they were also used for battle damage repair on Westerplatte as well. So this then became a sub-camp of the Stutthof concentration camp, as was the Westerplatte as well. I can't tell you what that is, I don't know. So this pile of junk here, I put it to you as part of the camp. I might be wrong, but it certainly would appear that way to me. Now, there are sites, incidentally, on the internet. I'll give you a link to one below, which it's in Polish, but in the photographs, even if you can't understand Polish, you'll get an idea from the photographs what was going on. But these photographs were taken some 20 years ago, so the rubble has reason not to be here any longer. Now, next thing that happened was this, that there was a policy called Heim ins Reich, and Home in the Reich, and this was to bring ethnic Germans, or people who spoke German, in the occupied areas, largely occupied areas, newly occupied areas of the Soviet Union, such as the Baltic states, eastern Poland, parts of Romania, back into Germany. Now, in many cases, these people didn't get much of a choice, but given the choice of either returning to Nazi Germany or living under Soviet occupation, I think to a certain extent it is understandable why they would choose to live in Nazi Germany, although later they would have very good reason to regret this decision. Now, Nazi Germany did see these people, however, as second-class citizens. It was prepared to let them have their home in the Reich, but not in the Alt Reich, the Old Reich. These people were located in occupied areas of Poland, to a large extent the Reichsgau Vaterland. And the reason they put them there was because they moved the Polish farmers out, stole the farms, put these settlers, or displaced persons, I'm going to call them, because that's really what they were. These displaced persons then found their way into the into the Vaterland. Now, I've got some bricks there. If anybody knows anything about bricks, would make this point. I'm not certain. These bricks, having said that, they look more modern to me. Not that I know anything about bricks, but I did once want to be a builder when I was a child. But anyway, I never made it that high. A bricklayer, in fact, I wanted to be. Right. So the ethnic Germans, displaced persons were brought to camps such as this one. This was one of the largest camps for such people. I mean, it was quite suitable for it, and people were held here until a decision was made where they were going to be sent. Obviously, it wouldn't. It's like a camp where you can sort of go in and out if you want, but this is where they would have been fed, and this is where they would have slept. Now, I think we'll go this way. We're coming a bit outside the camp boundary now, as I understand. It's very difficult actually to set where the boundaries were when you're trying to work off. Oh, look, there's a deer. I'll bring the camera in closer. Can you see the deer? Oh yeah, I really like that when I'm doing filming. I was filming the sunset, sun up, a few days ago over the River Vistula, and a bittern landed within 2 meters of me. And because I had my camera, I'd been filming it for 20 minutes, I didn't move it onto the bittern, and I think I should have done actually. I've got to come back next day to film the dawn. But to see a bittern so close, something that's never happened to me before. Oh, I like that. Makes the video more live, doesn't it? Right, so these ethnic settlers were kept here. Now, after the invasion of the Soviet Union, the ethnic settlers, these displaced persons, continued to arrive in German-occupied areas, but and they were continued to be placed in largely in the general government or the occupied areas. There's a photograph of Hans Frank together with who was he with? Forgotten. It'll come back to me. Anyway, welcoming the 1 millionth displaced person to settle in the Heim ins Reich program. That's March 1944. Now, as there was fewer people coming here, incidentally, here was a logical place for them to come, because if they travelled from the Baltic states, they got on a boat at Tallinn or Riga or Reval or Riga, whatever it was called, and then they would come here. So that was pretty logical. The port, I've just cycled from where the port is, and it was a good location for them to be then sent further south using the train connections that existed. Now, the reason for me coming over here is just to have a look over the city, and so you can to give you an idea on how it was placed as far as the Free City would be concerned. You can see the refinery over there in the distance, and the thing is, all around us, not really visible, but there is housing units, and this is how this city has grown. But here, this area hasn't actually been touched really yet. Now, next thing, the SS had to obey normal criminal law, and so they would be an SS person who did something wrong would be treated, if it was in a military offence, in a normal court martial or in their own court. But Himmler wanted to change this. The SS was a state within the state, so this was meant to be the elite. At least that's how Himmler saw it, but as we shall see, that wasn't necessarily the case. Now, the laws were changed so that the SS could come under the jurisdiction of special SS courts, which were headquartered in Munich. And I'll possibly, if I'm feeling like it, I'll do more on this in a separate video. Now, these courts then could sentence people, but they wanted to have their own prison. So it was in Munich, and to start off with, they sent them to Dachau concentration camp. But that, for obvious reasons, wasn't such a good idea. If you've got an SS man, he's done something wrong. What they wanted to do is to re-educate. This word re-educate is something that comes up a lot in both Nazi and in communist ideologies. And then, once he'd been re-educated, and I'm using that in inverted commas, he would be sent back to his former unit. So that was the idea. So having them mixing with the run-of-the-mill concentration camp prisoner, Jews and Poles and all the rest of it, wasn't what they wanted. So what they did was this camp was set up as a special camp for the SS. Now it did need some work doing to it because it had been used as a camp for these displaced people. So it needed an electric fence was put up 2 meters high. A lot of work was done on it. And in time, this became a camp for the SS. Now, SS prisoners. Now, if we go back to its very beginning, when it was one of the most modern camps in the whole, garrison camps, I should say, in the whole of the Gdańsk area. Remember that Gdańsk, prior to World War I, had been a military base of the Prussian army. Rommel was stationed here. In fact, Rommel met his future wife, Lucy, at a dance here in Gdańsk. And he married her later. I think she also came from a military family. So from being one of the most modern camps of that, with all sorts of other facilities, the facilities which had been built then, such as the hospital, such as the shooting range, the armories, still served a bait for the guards. So that was still useful for them. Now the conditions for the prisoners themselves, obviously this was SS run camp and the things were pretty difficult. They had to keep them busy and occupied 14 hours a day. Some of them were sent out to work, and they could be sent out and work for things which the local labour office demanded. So they could be working in carpentry, mechanics, could be working in the countryside, they could be working on the port, doing physical labour, all sorts of possibilities depending on what the local employment office wanted. They also did at least 2 hours military training per day. So this would have been drilling and the likes. This became even more important later because many of the prisoners who came here were from the units from the Baltic countries, from Belgium, from the Netherlands, and these were people who had been recruited into the SS but given very little training, and then they failed to carry out military tasks appropriately. They'd been found guilty of an offence, and as a result of this offence, then they were sent here. So actually sort of doing something with this knowledge became rather important. Another thing which was set up here was the SS Parachute Battalion, Fallschirmjäger 500, Parachute Battalion 500, was only SS Parachute Battalion, and it was set up here at this camp using these criminals now, or criminals, or SS criminals. Now, they could be sent here for military offences, as I just said. They could be sent here for things to do with civil offences, such as theft. They could be sent here for doing things such as sexual relations with Jewish people, for example, and all sorts. Or they could even be sent for disciplinary offences. For example, if somebody escaped from a camp, a concentration camp, and an SS guard was held to be responsible, that guard could then end up here. And that must have been on the minds of those who were guards here. which may explain why later they used guards from Baltic countries. This had the result of the guards. I'm going to go back. Actually, I don't think it's fair. I think I've just come outside the area of the camp now. The using these guards from the Baltic countries. They were new members of the SS, and they used to take out a lot of aggression on the prisoners. Now, Himmler himself had said that this isn't to be run as a concentration camp; it's a re-education camp. But the new SS men, 18, 19-year-olds from the Baltic countries, were able to sort of beat up the SS prisoners who were here. We've got accounts written from people who actually witnessed it. I've prepared a longer video. I haven't written it. Sorry, I've written it, but I haven't actually even dictated it yet. But I describe the people who see these beatings going on. I said, what's happening here? Germans are beating up Germans. So, I should really take some notes when I actually do something like this. There's even cases where death sentences were actually carried out here. We know that, for example, there was at least one of the guards from Stutthof was executed here. In fact, a number of people were executed here, and this leads on to another tragedy. I don't know what the word is here, but there is a cemetery in Gdańsk, Zaspa. There, the very first victims of the war, of Nazi aggression, of the people who were killed, for example, from the Polish post office, the people who were murdered later from the Polish post office, the people who were murdered at Simonsdorf, these first victims of Stutthof, they're in the cemetery in Gdańsk Zaspa. But it would appear that also we can find some of the SS men who were killed in this camp, executed, were also put into the cemetery at Gdańsk Zaspa, right next to their victims. There was an attempt to build a sub-camp for this place here, and that was put in Berlin. However, in August 1943, the RAF put a stop to it. During an air raid, it was completely destroyed. There were people also sent to other camps, for example, one in Baden and the other one in Bavaria. But they never held the amount of prisoners as were held here. Now, when Dirlewanger, the Sonderkommando Dirlewanger, was formed, it was formed around units of poachers from Sachsenhausen. I think it was Himmler who had the idea that poachers would make good SS soldiers. They were the sort of people who could do the jobs that normal people wouldn't want to do. And so these poachers were set up. I'll start again. Goering also thought the poachers would make good soldiers. I don't really quite know why you would think this, because maybe the idea is that, okay, they're a poacher, they'll be good shots. But poachers aren't necessarily people who shoot, but rather people who trap. But the trapping is a thing you have to follow through the bushes, and you can find out where the animals are likely to be. There you set the traps. So that would make good anti-partisan units. So follow where they. So I think there is some logic to it. Now, the idea forming with Sonderkommando Dirlewanger was this: that Dirlewanger himself, who had been a early Nazi, and he'd been given a job in the Heilbronn employment office when the Nazis came to power, but then he started attacking other Nazis because he was highly educated, and these other Nazis weren't so well educated, and he started attacking them. And then they found things out about him. He went to prison for rape and pedophilia. He got out, and then he found himself under more charges. He managed to get out again thanks to a friend, Gottlob Berger, and he went off to Spain, took part in the Spanish Civil War. He came back to Germany at the end of the war, and this unit was set up, the Sonderkommando Dirlewanger was set up for him. And therefore, these poachers were put under his command. They were sent initially off to Lublin area of Poland, where they guarded camps. But the behaviour there was so bad that even Odilo Globocnik complained at the behaviour. But because Dirlewanger had the protection of Gottlob Berger and Heinrich Himmler, he managed to get away with it. But he was sent off to Belarus, where his Sonderkommando Dirlewanger was used to combat partisans. But the combat itself was largely killing innocent civilians who had absolutely nothing to do with it. Of course, in any guerrilla warfare, you've got to bear in mind that the guerrillas will have to go to get supplies from somewhere, and often that somewhere is from the locals. And so they often, if you've got a farm, then suddenly you've got all of these people turning up carrying guns, and what are you going to do? So that was the problem. So to cut them off from supplies, they went around murdering people and capturing very few arms in the process. In Russia, or in Soviet Union, I should say, in Belarus, above all, because the advance had been so quickly in 1941, huge amounts of troops had been left behind, had been surrounded. But many of these Red Army soldiers were from the area, so they just went home. And those that weren't then formed units amongst themselves, and this formed the basis of the partisan network. In the summer of 1944, there was Operation Bagration. The Soviets advanced, and Dirlewanger got out of there really quick. He was at a place called Ełk today, and when the Warsaw Uprising started, he was then sent to Warsaw. He got to Warsaw a few days later, and his unit was there, and then it committed the terrible atrocities of the Wola massacre, which I've talked about in other videos. Now, his recruits by this time were coming from here. Now, we don't know how many he got from here, but he did get a rather large amount were sent to Warsaw from here, several hundred people, in September of 1944. This is towards the end of the uprising itself. This camp was evacuated in March 1945. Soviets got here, and those troops that were still around here were sent to the east, what's called today Żuławy. This is where the Vistula Delta is, and there they was completely cut off, and they were probably destroyed in April 1945. After that, this camp was used by, probably as a POW camp. Then it was used by the NKVD, because the camp was intact. I mean, these are the places, Sachsenhausen, for example, is a very good example, or Buchenwald is another example. Plenty of other places they used for interning people, Mühlberg. And then, after that, it was handed over to the Polish administration, where they used the warehouses and other features of the camp. But I've got an example. Somebody was tracked by a local Polish magazine called mojaorunia.pl, and there they found somebody in 2010 who remembered what it was like. Now the street at the bottom, where you can hear the traffic noise, that's ulica Stargardzka, and there was he said the amount of dead bodies, German bodies, all over the place. And he even recalled something where the bodies had to be dug up and moved somewhere else. And he said that of a German soldier, no entry. It's not clear though. What's that mean? Because normally it should be on the right hand side. So I've got a left and a right, but it's closer to this one. So that sign should be there. I don't know. I don't quite understand what's going on here. There's a place for a tree. It's not a rubbish bin. Anyway, so he recounted how a German soldier had asked to take the boots off this person who was being exhumated. Quite an unusual a request, but then again, in those days things were very, very bad and life had to go on, so anything which was here was actually plundered. So this I don't think plundered is even the right word, because that sounds bad, but anything of use could be taken. I mean, even firewood was in short supply, so that people would come here, they needed things like even nails and screws, and they would take them, and that would be used for themselves. Doors, for example, anything like that. Oh, there's a building, so I won't go any further. Maybe this is maybe I shouldn't have come down here, who knows. Right, anyway. So how come there's not much known about this camp? The first thing is, you've got to bear in mind, the victims were people who died here were the SS. So nobody today is going to want to put up a monument to say, this is where the SS were killed. That certainly won't be happening. It's strange though, because of the fact that there are so little is known about the SS penal units. So I mean, Derlevang has several books on him, but oh, that's an interesting thing. I wonder what that is. Oh, it's a drain, I think. No, don't know what it is. No idea. It looks as though it might be something of don't know. Is it Nazi period? No idea what it is. Anyway, I've got enough junk. I would have collected that 20 years ago and until I found out what it was. Probably now find out it's super valuable, and then there'll be swarms of people coming here to try and find it. I was in Helm. There was a former camp there where about 80,000 Soviet POWs died there, starvation. Anyway, I found the barbed wire and I took it because I could see it was about to be redeveloped. And I offered it to several museums and nobody was interested. And I ended up throwing it out myself. It was in my garage for a number of years. I lived in a block of flats and it was in the underground garage, so everybody had access to it, but leaving barbed wire next to where your car's tyres are was never really a particularly good idea. Could something be done with this site to sort of recall what this was? The question is, of course, is that, I mean, how would it be paid for? And that's the problem. We just don't know. I mean, not only because of who the victims were, but I mean, putting a little museum organised by locals. I do know these local people who do prospecting, for example, come down here with the metal detectors. Then they write about what they've actually found. Oh, I was here 2 days ago and that wasn't like that. Look at that. So that must have happened in my absence. Well, I've got some remains up there, some bits of broken brick and the likes of that. We can see actually from the photographs, the few photographs that exist of the camp, that we've got this sort of deep gully. In fact, part of the work that was carried out by the prison, the initial Polish prisoners, was on levelling out. So we can see it, you're coming up a hill up here, so it's relatively flat where I was walking around before. But down here, through there, there's a rather deep gully, and that is where the work is now going on. We've got these buildings here now. Obviously those breeze blocks have been put up. They're modern, they're from the 1990s, but the buildings themselves, I would suggest, are in fact from the Nazi period. The road, this has been tarmacked over, and on top of that we've got these other, I don't know what the word is, sort of plates, tile-like things, sort of modern-day cobbles. But they, that's from socialist era, communist era. So also not. But underneath it, I dare say, if we went deep enough, we would find some. This could be German. Sorry, this could be German. This bit here, definitely. Yeah, this over here. That certainly could come from Nazi period. So, I hope you found that interesting. A little walk around here, showing you the SS Straflager punishment. In fact, it's different names, but if you find that interesting, then you might want to subscribe. I upload every Tuesday and every Friday at 2000 hours. So, and sometimes upload at other times as well. But if that's the sort of a thing you're interested in, then subscribe. But for the moment, all the best from me in Gdańsk, Poland.